Would you rather live in a beach house or a cabin in the woods? And I would genuinely like to know, so you can leave a comment below. Let us know, would you rather live in a beach house or a cabin in the woods? Luckily, I married a woman who, like me, wants to live in a cabin in the woods. And last week, we finally pulled the trigger. We did it. We ended up moving to Idlewild, and we are now living in a foresty area. We're surrounded by trees, and we are loving it. And there was a lot to think about before actually pulling the trigger on that. We had to think of finances. Is this going to make sense for us financially? We had to find the right place. We had to make sure we had a car that had a four-wheel drive. And there was a lot to think about. And we easily could have been stuck in that cycle of thinking through what are all the things that could go wrong? What are all the obstacles that we're going to have to face before making this decision? And sometimes that happens to all of us where we have something that God places on our heart. Maybe it's a dream that we've had. We feel like God has put this in front of us, but we get in this cycle of thinking through all the things that could go wrong and all the obstacles that we can face. And I wanted to ask you, if that is the case for you, what would it take for you to pull the trigger on that, right? Sometimes we have to step out in faith after making all this planning. We shouldn't be rehashing all the stuff that could go wrong, all the obstacles. We should, at some point, step out in faith. When you're in that cycle, it's hard to think through what is the end in sight. Well, there's three things that could happen. One is you do it. Two is you do something like it. Maybe it's a little bit different than what you planned, but you end up doing something similar, something different. Or three, you make the decision to not do it, right? But at some point, you have to get there, right? You can't always be in that cycle because what happens is you're never going to do it. You never decide to not do it. You never decide to do it or do something like it. You're just stuck in that cycle forever. And I want to encourage you, if that is the case for you, to step out in faith. Now, did we think through every single thing that we had to do? We did our best, but when we actually got up there to Idlewild, we were surrounded by snow, and my wife was driving the vehicle with the four-wheel drive, and I was driving the vehicle with chains for the tires, but the chains were in the back seat. I didn't put them on the tires yet, and there was snow everywhere. But thankfully, I got behind a snow plow of all things that took me all the way up, and I just thought, isn't that incredible? Even though I forgot something, I maybe should have put the chains on first. I made a mistake, but there's grace sometimes. God sometimes clears our path when we're already on it. And it made me think of this. It could have been a coincidence. It could have been God putting that there, but it made me think of this idea that sometimes when you are on a path, God will clear the path. And sometimes we wait. We're like, God, I want you to make the path known, make it clear to me before I even step on it. Sometimes it's better just to get on the path and let God clear the way after. So I hope that encourages you if you are in that spot where you're just in the cycle of planning. I want you to step out in faith and let God handle the rest.